As you can see, Spot likes to keep busy. Even when he takes a rest in his basket, he dreams of things that he enjoys doing when he's awake. Today, his tummy is telling him that he's hungry, so he's dreaming about packing a picnic basket with all the tastiest things he can think of. At last, Spot woke up. "A picnic," he said. "If there's one thing I really enjoy, it's a picnic." Just as he was getting excited at the thought of having a picnic, he noticed the calendar above his basket. January, it said. Spot was wide awake now, and he suddenly felt most disappointed. "January is not a month for picnics," he said. "I shall have to think of something else to do." But Spot didn't have to think for long. During the night, it had snowed, and Spot knew exactly how to keep busy in the snow. The calendar said February. All the snow had melted, but it was still far too cold for a picnic. If you went outside, you had to keep on the move to keep yourself warm. "February is a good month for lots of busy playing with your friends," said Spot. One morning, Spot was woken by a strange whistling noise. All the trees were bending over in the same direction. "It must be March," said Spot. He checked the calendar, and sure enough, it said March. "Now then, there's always something that keeps me busy in March. If only I could remember." And he looked again at the poor bending trees. "I remember I got my busy idea when I saw those trees bending like that last year." "Of course," said Spot. "When the wind is as strong as it is today, it's time to fly my kite." The new buds on the trees said April. The daffodils and the tulips and the primroses said April. The greener grass said April. And Spot's calendar said April. "And April means new friends," said Spot. He set off to find his new friends, who he knew would be there just waiting to play with him. They came every year without fail. He looked behind the trees with their new buds. He looked amongst the daffodils and tulips and primroses. At last, he came to the fields of grass that were much greener than in the winter months, and there they were, lots and lots and lots of lambs. His new friends, just waiting to leap and run with him. "April is a very happy month for me," said Spot. Spot knew that soon it would be warm enough and dry enough, and the wind would be gentle enough for him to go on a picnic. A picnic was one of his favorite things to do. Every night, he put the food that he intended to eat next day into his picnic basket so that he'd be ready as soon as the weather was just right. His calendar said May. "Surely it must be just right in May for a picnic," he thought. but it wasn't. So he busied himself digging the garden, trying to find the place he'd buried last year's bones, and deciding where to bury this year's bones. Of course, he thought to himself, I need to find a really good place to hide the biggest bones that I get every Christmas. The thought of Christmas made him excited, and his digging became more excited until he was quite puffed out. Here, steady on, he said to himself. It's only May. Christmas is a long, long time away. He stopped digging. I've made up a rhyme without even trying, he said. Here, steady on. It's only May. Christmas is a long, long time away. He chose one of the bones he'd just dug up and settled down for a good chew with the idea of improving and adding to his rhyme. He kept repeating his rhyme over and over again, but he didn't add anything to it because most of his mind was concentrating on his busy task of chewing. When it said June on his calendar, it was too hot for a picnic and still too far from Christmas to think about that. So Spot decided to go for a swim. When it said July on his calendar, it was just right for a picnic. Spot packed as much as he could get into his picnic basket. And then, when he couldn't squeeze in another thing, he closed the lid and off he went. Past the trees, now covered in leaves, past the flowers, quite different from those he'd seen in April, past the fields of grass, not quite so green, where his new friends only wanted to graze quietly and lie down. On and on he went, until he came to the right place. Spot knew that it was the right place because his jaws told him that the picnic basket was far too heavy to carry any further. And his tummy told his jaws that it was about time they started chewing something, instead of just carrying something. When Spot had eaten enough, he didn't feel like being busy anymore that day. He lay down for a rest, and was soon enjoying doing nothing so much that he wondered if he'd ever want to be busy again. There are times to be busy and times to be unbusy, said Spot, and August is an unbusy time. August means holiday time. And holiday time means the seaside. And the seaside means the sun and the beach. And the beach means sandcastles and ice creams and sandcastles and sunshades and warm sand and and generally being unbusy. Of course, some creatures just won't let anyone be unbusy for very long. Oh! It said September on Spot's calendar. And when an apple fell on his head, Spot remembered that September is the time for picking apples. October is an indoors month of food and fizzy drink and games and fun and music and the one word that includes all these things is parties. Food and fizzy drink and games and fun and music and friends. Parties. Food and fizzy drink and games and fun and music and friends and presents and Christmas. Presents mean Christmas. Now the month of October's here. Christmas time is really near. Ha! I've done it again, said Spot. Every time I think of Christmas, I make up a rhyme. It just happens without me trying. In November, Spot is too busy to think about Christmas. November is too good a month to waste thinking about how to be busy in other months, because in November, all those hundreds and thousands and billions and trillions of leaves that had sprouted way back in April decide they've done enough waving and dancing on the high branches and agree to float to the ground. And on the ground, waiting for them is Spot, because leaves are good to scuttle through and roll in and kick about and catch. November is such good fun that it takes your mind completely away from Christmas, and then, before you realize it, the calendar says December. Spot suddenly realized that it was almost Christmas, and he hadn't even begun to wrap the presents that he was going to give to his friends. I really must get busy, he thought. Can you guess what Spot is giving to all his friends this year? And can you guess what Spot's friends are all giving him for Christmas this year? And the beauty of having Christmas in December, said Spot, is that it takes you on to the next month when it's January, and I can start my busy year all over again. Spot is certainly busy every month of the year. Can you remember what he does each month?